A sense of hope in Gaza with the ceasefire coming after nearly 47,000 people were killed by Israeli attacks and Western weapons. Palestinians are now trying to rebuild their lives and homes, many of them destroyed by the bombing. How has the spirit of Gaza people remained unbroken? This is Inside Story. For the first time in 15 months, the skies over the Gaza Strip are relatively quiet. The ceasefire agreement between Hamas and Israel has brought much needed pause in the killing. But on the ground, the scars of the war are still fresh and the challenges of recovering are quite massive. Today we're joined by a panel of human rights activists, a director of the WFP, as well as a political analyst to talk about the current situation and the future prospect of the Gaza Strip. Thank you so much for joining us. Dr. Renard, let's begin with 15 months of devastating war involving the repeated threats by the Israeli government of expelling Palestinians, the genocidal acts that we see on the ground. What does that mean for the Palestinian people at this time?
Israel has planned to annex parts of the Gaza Strip. For example, the northern area. Israel has devoted the general plan to evacuate northern Gaza and depopulate the area and resettle Israeli settlers in northern Gaza. Other parties within the Israeli political landscape looked for maybe building a buffer zone or using the annexation of the North Gaza to build a new industrial and tourist and agricultural areas according to the maps that were leaked to the media, indicating the Israeli intentions regarding Gaza Strip. In addition, we can talk about the Palestinian cause in general, that Israel planned to liquidate the Palestinian cause by pushing the Palestinian out of the Gaza Strip, by using forced expulsion, by using genocide, massive bombardment of the Palestinian civilian targets, medical facilities, municipal installations. All this in addition to the infrastructure that was targeted heavily by the Israeli artillery and bombardment, which caused a lot of casualties among the Palestinians. We're talking about 46,000 Palestinians who were killed, talking about over 100,000 Palestinians who were injured, in addition to thousands who were taken into custody to Israeli new prisons and were treated very badly.
Dr. Renard, let me stop you right here, and just because I want to go back to this important point. Enforced displacement, it's not only the intense bombing campaign that has caused further civilian casualties for the past 15 months, but the enforced displacement. Can we talk about if the Israeli strategy of pushing Palestinians out of their homes has succeeded, or are we at a point where we could say that it didn't work?
Actually, according to the facts on the ground, we can say that Israel failed to achieve its goals by evacuating northern Gaza, if we talk about a certain area. But in general, Israel also failed to push the Palestinians to leave Gaza Strip by using force and creating a repulsive environment that will push the Palestinians to look for a safer place, a place where they can find food and good living for their families. But actually all these measures taken by the Israeli army actually failed to achieve the goals which were declared by the government, the eradication of Hamas authoritative and military capabilities, and bringing back the hostages from Gaza, and guaranteeing that Gaza Strip will not pose a threat in the future. If we look back to these goals, we can't find that Israel failed to return its hostages from the Gaza Strip, even though Netanyahu insisted that he will succeed by using heavy military procedures against the Gaza Strip, by using collective punishment, by using heavy artillery against the Palestinians, and in addition to the usage of hunger as a weapon against the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip.
I want to come back to this point later, because that you just opened the door for a question to Antoine, director of the World Food Program. And for the past 15 months, it's not only the bombings, it's not only the destruction and forced displacement, but the byproducts, the use of starvation as a weapon of war, the restriction of aid. Can you walk us through some of the challenges that, as an organization that worked hard to provide much needed aid, what were the problem? What was the main issue that hindered much of the work of the World Food Program?
For the World Food Program, what has been one of the biggest challenges that you have, and you can see it behind us, is that Gaza, prior to the 7th of October and the tragedy that came out and the war that came out of the 7th of October, is the fact that we used to be in a high middle income area. So you had most of people that were having potentially access to most of the products. You were living in the Gaza Strip, where most of people were actually having a proper dietary diversity. They had labneh, they had fruits, they had vegetables. And the challenge that we have is that a month after the start of the war, markets starting to collapse. You started to have population that used to have full kitchen sets. They could actually have a proper, have the gas, have a proper oven and all of that. And suddenly you have a market totally collapsing. Suddenly you have population that would have never ever imagined that they will need to use, a simple stove made of clay to actually do bread. You suddenly had population that used to have, let's say, a proper nutrition intake, and suddenly no more labneh, no more fruits, no more vegetables, no more meat, no more fish. Over the last few months, most of the population in Gaza have been relying mostly on cereal and pulses. So that's all you have. So the challenge that we have as the World Food Program 15 months into this war is the fact that you have real nutrition issues. Most of people are and have been queuing for hours just to have a hot meals. UNRWA and WFP have been the main providers, with a number of local and international NGOs, to just cover the basic food needs. And when you're asking me what were some of the challenges really that we had was actually to provide sufficient assistance to the population by a number of impediments. We had challenges on the crossings, but we also had challenges now within Gaza, where we started also to have looting and law and order that was not anymore in place. So it was not just a negotiation about more in the north of Gaza and the northern governorate, and we know how the northern governorate has been also cut off, but it was also how when through the crossings that we had and we negotiate hard to have more goods entering, was also the looting and the attacks that we had within Gaza. And the challenge that you have is that it was just not the market collapsing, it was also the social fabric that really has been impacted. So if you look at it from a pure food security perspective, you have now a population that for months have been deprived from some of the key food intakes, micronutrients. So your own future generation, with now 15 months into this war, is to make sure that we are looking at the future days where indeed we need to have market flourishing. The last point I have on this, the market has been so disintegrated that at one point, a bag of wheat flour, the cost went to 1,000 shekel. Prior to the war, it was 90 shekel. By the way, today, the bag of wheat flour is back to 80 shekel. So you see, the thing that will be fascinating for us in looking at the hope is how we make sure that not only we will be able to serve population at the right level of assistance, but especially invest again in local food processing, in markets, in retailers, in shops that actually can re-flourish. So that's a bit 15 months into the war, 90% of the population is classified as in food crisis mode. Again, queuing for a whole day just to have a hot meal, barely have water, and not even have some of the bakeries that were up and running in central and south Gaza. So I hope that we can have the same panel in a month's time, and we can see, markets flourishing.
UNRWA has repeatedly described in the past months that the aid mechanism is largely broken. And that's due to the power vacuum that's created by the intense bombing campaign, by the deliberate attacks on not only law enforcement securing delivery of the trucks, but also on aid workers. Can you just share with us an insight how difficult it was to organize aid convoy just to deliver them to the distribution point, designated distribution points?
True, the challenge that we had in this conflict is that it's been one of the most kinetic ever in terms of conflict. It's not 15 months of war, it's actually 15 months with constant active conflict, bombing. So the challenge that we had is that we were serving population while the war was ongoing with active bombing. We had also some of the staff from the World Food Programme that have been directly shot at. Thanks really, we managed through our armored vehicle that no one was actually physically harmed, but a number of colleagues from other UN organizations, or especially from NGO, that have been targeted while they were working. Just a few days ago, we had colleagues from MAN, one of our NGO partners, in a food distribution. 2 colleagues passed away. So the challenge that we were having was actually to continue to serve population. Many of them have been on many different moves. Yesterday I was with Nejm. She moved 8 times. She's from Bet Leia. The first thing that she was telling me was, I want to go back, but we had to follow people while they were moving. So if you're asking me a bit what was the challenge, is very active war, following people where they are. Every time that we thought there was stability, there was a new move. Those that were in Rafah, suddenly everything that was planned, we had to reshape it. And now again, a ray of light. Most of people now are going to move, and hopefully we're going to follow them again in providing the right assistance where they will go back.
In a much more proper and safer environment, hopefully. Samir, I want to come to you with this. Both Raed and Antoine talked about many of the incidents that constitute grave violation of human rights. As a director of Mezan human rights in Palestine, can you give us an example of human rights violation throughout the past 15 months? What happened? And I understand also there was very challenging time for you to document the documentation process of these violations.
Since 1948, I think, the Israeli war crimes continue since that time to right now. And when we have a 7th October, we have all the Israelis, the leaders in the political level and the army level, all of them talking about genocide. They tell us in a very clear way that Israel gonna to commit a genocide against the Gazanians. So that they start with cutting water, electricity, food, aid, everything to reach Gaza. And in the same time, if you reviewing what's going on the ground all this time, that they started with the healthcare, hospitals, healthcare centers, everywhere. And in the humanitarian law, it's like they have a full protection, not to be a target from anyone, even if you have any details telling you that maybe this hospital or that can be used for different reasons. You should ignore this. You should keep the hospital safe. And Geneva Convention itself talking about the duty of the occupation power to be care that the healthcare will work, the hospitals will work in a very good way. They didn't like ignore anything. Hospitals, universities, schools, all the civil building for sure, including the houses. At the end, all those Israeli occupation forces activity inside Gaza Strip are war crimes, crime against humanity, genocide. This is how anyone, any independent person, any freedom human being, why the world, I don't think that anyone can look for what happened against Gaza out of genocide, because all the genocide aspects which founded in the Prevent Genocide Convention are achieved on the ground here. So that even when we are talking about starvation, there is many challenges, but the main issue is the Israeli strategy to push the Palestinian here in Gaza Strip to famine, not to push them to die in different ways for different reasons. If you survive from a bombarding here or there, you should die because there is no health care or there is a famine or starvation, and in the same time they are pushing the situation everywhere to be polluted, and it's increasing the diseases here without any kind of health care, without any kind of medicine. So that I think the world is on this question in future, if they can allow this to happen again against the Palestinian, if they can ignoring the Palestinian case or a question for a long time without be free, without reaching their freedom and their own state, I think that the world and everyone, every person, everywhere should ask him this question, what we can do.
Absolutely. And my question to all of you, do you think it will hold? Antoine, what do you think?
Well, I think that for us the ceasefire is really a start. And I think that beyond putting on ourselves the pressure, is more to actually be more fulfilling what is the hope of the people on the ground. So whatever as humanitarian we need to do to make sure that the ceasefire is holding, you can imagine that 15 months into this war, all the local NGOs, international NGOs, us as the World Food Programme, but my colleague on the United Nations, we will make our utmost that actually we have a sustained ceasefire. And we actually owe it also to the population. So I think it's more a collective implication for all those that are now reaching the ceasefire is to make it happen. So for that, I look at, how much smile I've been seeing since I arrived back into Gaza and since the moment we heard about the ceasefire. So I think it's more this collective commitment that I see for ourselves to say, well, we have to make it work. And after that, there is a number of elements that, of course, are way beyond purely the UN and the NGO organization and the agencies. So I think that all the different actors will have to play their role to make sure that we hold to the population of Gaza.
Is the ceasefire expected to improve the humanitarian situation? Now, as of now, I understand it might be difficult to anticipate, but what do we have here as signs that will lead into improvement?
I mean, the signs that we have is that we have all it takes in the different corridors. And for that, I don't even need to look at the ceasefire. We've been saying as humanitarian, we've been saying as the World Food Programme, there is no logistical issue. We have food in Egypt, we have food in Ashdod, we have food in Amman, we are ready to bring it in. So now the ray of light that I have as the director of the World Food Programme is that we do hope that the law and order will be maintained in a manner that actually we don't have the impediments that we had before. Crossings to be open, and so like that we can actually have a proper surge of assistance within Gaza. For us, the readiness is there. Now we'll need to make sure that it holds, and then as well that we have a proper law and order within Gaza to make sure that we can actually reach population.
Dr. Renard, from a political perspective, do you think the ceasefire will hold?
I think it's going to hold, at least for the first phase, if we take in consideration that Israel failed to release any of its prisoners by using military force. So it is in the favor of Israel to let the ceasefire succeed till they can get their hostages released. This is in one hand. On the other hand, we can see that the Palestinian factions are taking in consideration the deteriorating humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip, and they are really interested in finishing this suffering by ending the fight that erupted since 15 months. Above all, finding a political trajectory that can lead to reaping the fruits of this confrontation, and these victims who were sacrificed their lives in the sake of a Palestinian independent state. So it's time to reap the fruits through a political trajectory that can lead to a Palestinian independent state. From international point of view, maybe we talk here about the United States and the new administration. It's really interested in not having the Middle East inflamed with problems and the crises. So President Trump is interested in taking power, while most of the wars that have erupted about 15 months ago. So he will be in favor of sustaining or permanent ceasefire that keeps the situation quiet and calm, basically because he is the one who brokered this normalization. So he will try to revive this track once again and allow a new vision and re-engineering of the Middle East with zero wars.
Thank you. Really quick, for the sake of time, I want to hear your point of view from a human rights perspective. Is the ceasefire an opportunity for you to start documenting more properly all these grave violations? Is that going to help you?
We keep the documentation even during the war, but not in our ways, like to collect and documentate every single violation. But for sure we will return back to this strategy. But in general, we didn't stop during this genocide, and I think we will increasing our work to ending the immunity and to bringing the war criminals to be accountable for what they are commit here. We will increasing our work in this with our colleagues wide the world, with our friends, lawyers, organization, to follow each war criminal to be account about what he did, what he commit here in Gaza.
A final thought from the three of you, an expert in your field, the coming months, what are the prospects for Gaza, future of Gaza? Antoine.
I mean, really, the one that I hope we're going to see is that you don't need to have food and outs. I knew well Gaza before the 7th of October, and you have, I mean, we owe it to the youth. I was today with, Palestinian NGOs, and we were actually discussing with the youth. And I was expecting, more discussion related to, how we are going to survive tomorrow, what's going to happen. Most of them were, I was looking at the engineers say, how do we restart irrigation? I was looking at some of the ladies that were there. They were actually lawyers, and they were saying, well, what is the way forward? How do we have job creation? I'm not just being naive in telling you that. In a number of conflicts I've been, systematically you have a generation that even in the rubbles that you see around us, they will actually say, can we actually do local food processing again? Can I reinstate some of the greenhouses? Can I look at proper irrigation system, not just purely on the agricultural? But I think that they will look also from our end. We're already contemplating how to make sure that the mills are working again. How can we make sure that you can have a date bar factory up and running again? So from my perspective as the World Food Programme, this is what we want to look at. How much do we need to carry on to provide food and house? How can we make sure that markets are recovering? And then also, to this youth, what are the jobs that they're going to do? This used to be an area where you had the highest density of PhD. So I hope we're not going to face a brain drain, and actually we're going to count on these youth to rebuild, what is Gaza.
Thank you. Dr. Wright, in few words, what is the future of Gaza?
I believe the future of Gaza is part of the future of the Palestinian case in general. According to the U.S. plans to the region in general, I mean the Middle East, there is a plan to revive the Abraham Accords, in which Saudi Arabia can normalize its relation with Israel. In turn, there will be an attempt to revive the Palestinian issue by a political trajectory that can lead to the two-state solutions. But first of all, it needs an institutional unification, Palestinian institutional unifications, national unity, self-resilience, and doing our utmost efforts to reach to the two-state solutions. Where can the Palestinians get to an independent Palestinian state and getting rid of the Israeli occupation and the genocide through which we passed 5 wars within the 17 past years. It's time to finish all this suffering by reaching a solution to the Palestinian issue. Otherwise, the whole region will remain unstable unless the Palestinian issue is being solved.
In a minute time, Mr. Samir, what is the future of Gaza?
I'm optimistic all the time that we will have a different future. I think a happy life, because our people is very active. They will rebuild Gaza to be better than what we have before, and I think we will receive a help from everywhere, because all the complicity states in this genocide, they now will try to whitewash their faces with try to helping Gaza and the Gazanian, and I believe that we will reach our freedom and we will have our own state like any people wide the world.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much, and thanks for the insight. We appreciate it very much. We unfortunately come to an end to our program. We thank you, and we'll see you next time very, very soon.